transition to the new normal, we have left others behind. We need to reimagine and redesign our educational system. With the collective effort of schools, sponsors, and TagPro's learning management system, and core of passionate teachers, we can deliver free education and champion the cause of our students. Together, we would be able to teach, inspire, and serve, because TagPros believes that education is a right all children deserve. transition to the new normal, we have left others behind. We need to reimagine and redesign our educational system. With the collective effort of schools, sponsors, and TagPro's learning management system, and core of passionate teachers, we can deliver free education and champion the cause of our students. Together, we would be able to teach, inspire, and serve because TagPros believes that education is a right all children deserve.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the final webinar workshop for the month of July. I'm Jim Toscano, co founder and chief program officer of Tacros Education, and welcome to Advancing Better Online Distance Learning, Designing and Implementing Online Assessment. So, this is the last part of our July webinar series, and this is brought to you by Tacros Education and up and coming online K to 12 education marketplace where passion takes the lead in learning. And of course, our co-presenter, ZQ EdTech IT Solutions, the maker of Quizalize, the best quiz platform for remote or face-to-face classroom. And of course, we also have partners who have helped us reach out to more teachers, the Department of Education, International Cooperation Office under the leadership of Director Margarita Consolacion Ballesteros, Teacher Education Network, and the next series. Before we start off, a few reminders to our participants. Please practice responsible digital citizenship and refrain from sharing personal information in the comment section. And that includes your email or your GCash account number. So later on, we will still continue with our raffle draw, and you will be asked to share your GCash account number, but in the evaluation form and not in the comment section. So please don't post any private information, including your GCash account number. Let's all be civil and respectful to one another as we share our thoughts, questions, and ideas, even in the comment section. Another thing that want to remind everyone is that we love giving certificates to everyone, and it has been a very interesting month for all of us. So we just want to remind all our participants that number one, we have actually encountered some problems. Some of the participants actually asked for certificates without to be honest, without even participating or watching the webinar. Your registration does not mean that you will be given an e-certificate. For you to be given an e-certificate, you need to watch or participate live uh, with our webinar, like every Saturday that we do. We also give a 1 week chance for everyone to be part of Team Replay, and then once you're done watching, whether live or being part of Team Replay for 1 week, you will be given an e-certificate. So that means that all you have to do is to watch live or maybe watch it during that 1 week span for team replay, and then you will get your e-certificate. So please, teachers, let's all learn fair also. It has been very challenging for us because we have read emails asking for e-certificates without even really answering the evaluation part. So we just want to be fair with everyone who has been also continually watching or being part of our webinar series. So we want to be fair to everyone, but of course, we want to give e-certificates to everyone who's attending. So again, we are applying the 1 week rule. Anything after 1 week after the webinar will not be anymore considered as valid. So let's just do our own part and to make sure that we are learning well, but at the same time being fair to to all the teachers out there also. All right, so that should be clear, and thank you for that. Okay, so the next part is the most awaited part. I'm just gonna skip first to the announcement of the Gcash winners. Uh, we're on the last Gcash raffle draw for this month. So again, this raffle draw would not be possible without our partner ZQ EdTech IT Solutions. I'm sure you teachers are excited to hear who the lucky winners are for today's raffle, which encompasses the week before this, our session last week. So without further ado, here are the winners for last week's webinar series. Can we show on screen the list of winners? All right. So the winners are May L. Aguilar, Kathleen May B. Asico, Charisma R. Tumagoy, Roel R. Orbistondo, Rosa L. Liapitan. Again, the five winners for session number or part 3 or session 7, July 24, 2021 are May L. Aguilar, Kathleen May B. Asico, Charisma R. Tumagoy, Roel R. Urbistundo, and Rosa L. Lapitan. So congratulations, Tacros Education will get in contact with you for verification, and details on how to receive the Gcash prizes will be sent to everyone. Just a reminder also, our winners from July 17, there are still around 3 or 4 who has not replied to our email. Please check your email if you were one of the winners during July 7, 2021 workshop. Please check your email. We have already sent some verification email to you. So we wanna give that Gcash prize of 500 to our winners, but we need to make sure that they reply to our verification email. All right. So today is your final chance to be part of the 5 lucky webinar winners for the raffle draw. And if you want to join, the instructions are shown on the screen. So watch the webinar workshops, complete the evaluation form at the end of each session, and then follow Tacros Educations and ZQ EdTech IT Solutions and Quizalize social media pages. Of course, we are asking you also to show some love to our sponsor of the GCAS Prize, ZQ EdTech IT Solutions and Quizalize, by creating your own free account on the Quizalize online platform. We will be announcing the 5 winners for this week's webinar workshop sometime next week. We are live on both Facebook and YouTube, so invite your family and friends to the live stream so that they can also join the raffle. Only Gcash account holders are allowed to participate, so don't forget to download the Gcash app available at Google Play and Apple Store and create your Gcash account. Again, this raffle draw is made possible by none other than our co-organizer, ZQ EdTech IT Solution. All right. So for today's webinar workshop, we are joined again by one of our previous speakers. She is the principal of Xavier School, Grade School Unit, as well as an Apple Distinguished Educator. Today, she will talk about what makes assessments authentic and, of course, how do we enable or design authentic assessments in our classroom, whether we are doing virtual, face-to-face, or blended. Let's all welcome Miss Jane Cacacho.
Good afternoon, and I'm happy to be back here with Tag Bros. I hope that my previous session on formative and summative assessments has been helpful to you. And for today, the title, let me just share my screen. Okay, all right. So for today, I'm going to talk about authentic assessments. Okay, may I just say that This is not a new term. This has been in the educational system for more than a decade, and that what I will be sharing with you will be culled very much from these two books. Um, it's Learning by Refraction by Father Johnny Go and Mrs. Rita Atienza, and one other book, Understanding by Design by Grant Wiggins and Jay McTighe. May I just flex a little bit to help also build my credibility? No? So, why am I confident about sharing the contents of what I've read in the two books? For Understanding by Design in 2005, I've had the chance to attend a 5-day workshop with the two, although Grant Wiggins, as you know, has passed away. No? And for the other book, Father Johnny Go was my boss for more than 5 years, and I learned a lot from him. But I just like to say that what I will be sharing with you would not may some of them will really be lifted from the books, but a lot of them will be culled from the two books and then already mixed with our experiences in school. Okay? As I said, this is not rocket science. There is nothing new. If you have questions, clarifications, please do type them in the comment section so that we can address the questions later on. At the same time, um, I hope you will treat this talk like a grocery store where whatever will apply to you and your context, your setting, your school, please feel free to use them. Whatever you think will not work for you, there may be better ways of doing things that will be more suitable to your context. So we're not really pushing, but rather we are offering you a certain way of looking at things. Okay. May I just begin by saying, um, you are teachers, administrators, and as you know, there are many types of lessons, okay? And one way of classifying lessons might be the first one, like we teach basic foundational skills which we will need for future lessons. Like for example, you teach lesson A because student who does not understand lesson A surely will not understand lesson B, C, D, and any other lesson down the line. So we teach so that our students will have basic foundational skills, okay, that will be very crucial to their understanding of concepts for future lessons or for the mastery of more complex skills down the line again in the future. Okay, so that's one type of lesson. There are also other lessons where we teach, and while they will still be needed for future lessons, as it is at the moment, they are already complex enough, okay, real enough, so that they can be used now. They can be used immediately. Okay? So, there are some which are so basic, you just teach them because you need them for the next lesson. But there are some lessons that are already on their own, stand alone, may already be used, and we teach them precisely because the students need them already now. Okay. Why do I talk about that? Because I'd like to connect it with assessment for those that we teach, okay, because it's needed for the next subject, for the next lesson. When we test them, when we assess them, the nature of assessment is usually within the context of the discipline only. Okay? So, for example, um, in the very early grades, when we start teaching the letters, phonics, spelling, etc., when we test the letters, how do you test it? It's usually within the subject of reading or language or com arts, however you call that subject, right? Um, So it's those basic lessons are assessed in the context of the discipline. However, those that are more complex, especially in the higher grades, may already be assessed in coordination with other subjects or in the context even of the real world. And then, so for this afternoon, that is what I will be talking about. Okay? More about the second one. Lessons that are that may be assessed, okay, better if it's done in a more authentic way, and we will be defining what it means to be authentic. Okay, for those who were with my who attended my previous session, this slide is not new, but I would just like to give more time to it right now. So, when we talk about assessment, we cannot get away from talking about assessment tools, meaning to say, how will we test? What is the vehicle by which we will check whether our students understood the lesson or not? So, we can test it in a traditional way, and when I talk about traditional, it's usually pen and paper, and your test types would include multiple choice, true or false. You let them fill in the blanks. You have them match items. Okay? It can even be an essay question where they have a long or a short answer to it. Or, as I said, need not be pen and paper. It could be an oral test. But that is still considered a traditional assessment. However, sometimes we see the need for a student to demonstrate learning, okay, outside a pen and paper tool. So how could this look like? So sometimes we want them to do a project, okay? Sometimes we want them to submit a portfolio. We want them to conduct an interview, to come up and create a poster, or sometimes we let them role play a scenario wherein they will um, maybe let us see how well they understood and then interpret it through a drama. Okay? With the onset of technology, it's now possible to let them do a vlog, a newscast, online, etc. Okay? Sometimes checklists are also needed. Now, which of these two are the authentic assessments? Okay, would you have a guess for that? May I request you to type in the chat box, in the comment section, what you think is the authentic assessment between traditional and alternative? Okay, I will wait for 3 seconds. Let's see if Okay, I see from TC, she wrote alternative. How about from the others? Alternative? Okay. So we have more answers. Okay. Aubrey Loriano says both. Okay. And I would like to agree with her. Okay. May I just clarify that the authenticity, okay, the authenticity of an assessment does not lie in what kind of tool you use or in what object, item, performance you let your students do. Let me repeat that because in the comment section, I've only seen like 2 to 3 people who wrote both. Most wrote alternative. Let me just correct that. Okay? The authenticity, the realness, okay? The realness of an assessment does not lie whether it is traditional or alternative. Rather, it lies in what we let them do, okay, in the form of either a traditional or alternative assessment? So, the answer both is correct. A true, no, let's say an essay item. An essay item may be authentic. An oral test may be authentic. An interview may not be authentic. Okay? A role play may be inauthentic, not authentic. So it is not in the tool. It is rather in the form. For those who participated, thank you very much. We'll have more questions like that down the line. Okay. So, why is it important to nuance that? Because for those who have been doing alternative, you might be you might have this false sense of security that I'm letting my students do authentic assessments when in fact you're not. So, what will make any assessment authentic? Let me go to my next slide. Okay? If your assessment entails that your students do something in the context of the real world. Sa Tagalog, sa totoong buhay. Di ba? Parang nangyayari sa totoong buhay. Okay? So, if that assessment, the task you have them do in the authentic assessment addresses realistic problems, makatotohanang mga problema, something that they might encounter now at their age, or they may encounter when they're older, or someone may not necessarily themselves, no? Um, Something that needs to be done by someone, okay? So those are realistic problems, but they really have to be addressed in society, okay? So there are realistic options and issues that are presented. So there are problems. It's messy. Okay? There is an audience that we need to target. Okay? There's a person whose problem we need to solve. Okay? We need to know who we are talking to. There has to be someone out there that we will be helping. Okay? And then that task needs to have a genuine and relevant purpose. So it's not done just so that they will get a grade. It's being done because there is a need for it in the world. Okay? That is what will make a task authentic. And as I said, it's messy, just like life. What do I mean? Um, in life, you are never given your problems, di ba, in envelopes, right? Um, God does not tell you, okay, Jane, today, this is your situation, this is your problem. No. My problems today are a confluence of my entire lifetime experience. And it is affected by what's happening around me today, but I have to think about implications that will face me tomorrow and in the future. So life is that messy. And that's what we want to replicate for authentic assessments. Okay. I see Mandolita Oligo, right? Authentic assessment helps students analyze what they've learned and apply it in their own experience. That's correct. It's not enough to memorize, okay? They have to be creative, analytic, and critical when they solve those problems. All right, let me continue. Now, as we go towards authenticity, certain paradigm shifts are asked of us. Okay? First paradigm shift is that is from application later to application now. So these paradigm shifts are paradigms about assessment. Okay? Now, what does this mean? Normally, we think that assessments should only be done at the end of a lesson. Di ba? It's like that. Teach, 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 and then test. After the test, you look at the results, teach, teach, teach again, and then test. But this is something new that I would like to bring to you, okay? To propose to you. You may or may not agree with me. But if your assessment is authentic, it is actually possible that you let your students apply what they have learned as they are learning it. In other words, the application of the skills that authentic assessments require aids in mastery. Again, in another way of saying it is that as your students are being tested, okay, through the assessment, they continue learning about the subject matter. Unlike in usual assessments, where the final assessment seems to be the period, it's just the last punctuation mark after the learning. Okay? But what we're saying is, in some authentic assessments, the learning continues as they apply the skills, okay, in real world settings. And as they do that, that is also the assessment. Di ba? It's something new. Even I had to grapple with that. Parang, huh? How is it possible that I do not test at the end and they don't know it yet? It's not that we don't test at the end. It's just that learning does not stop as they do or as they take the assessment. Okay? So, that is what the first paradigm shift. Second, okay. The second paradigm shift is for traditional assessments, when we test them, like for the basic skills, remember a while ago when I talked about phonics, ABC, the most basic, we usually teach them out of context. What do I mean by out of context? It's divorced from the real world. Hindi siya pang totoong buhay. 'Di ba? Um, when you talk to your children, 'di ba, or when you teach small kids and you test them about the letters, no? And then you show them the letter A. And then you say, how does this sound? Ah. What words begin with A? Apple, axe. 'Di ba? Oh, so that's what we do. But in the real world, students don't go around, apple, atis, No, they just apply it already. But the way we test those, which are drill-like, are what we call out of context. But if we want it to be done authentically, then what we're saying is the assessment should be done in context. Meaning to say, in the context of the real world. Okay? Let me give you the usual example from UBD. Okay? Out of context would pertain to your drills. Let's say we're talking about basketball. So you teach dribbling, okay? You teach dribbling, you teach shooting, you teach guarding, all right? There are so many things that you teach separately. Will you, will grading them as they dribble, giving a grade for dribbling, adding to a grade for shooting, adding a grade for running, adding a grade for guarding, be the same as giving a grade for how they perform during an actual game? Let's say someone gets a perfect score in dribbling. Will that student be able to do well in a game? Are we sure? Maybe he knows how to dribble if no one is guarding him. But what if he needs to dribble, bring the ball from one end of the court to the other end of the court with so many other players trying to steal the ball from him? It's different, right? So dribbling as a drill and dribbling and performance in a game are different. But which is more important? It's the game. What will you do with all the dribbling if you will not win the game or if you cannot apply it in the game? Right? So that's an example of the sport. Now, if we apply it to academics, then it's like subject plug in versus real world situation. So, for example, you teach mathematics, you teach addition, subtraction. Let's say a student knows very well on paper, can add, can subtract. But when she goes to the store, she does not know if she got the correct change or not. Kulang pala yung sukle. Hindi niya napansin, hindi siya nag-complain. So, in that case, a student may be good at the subject plug-in type of assessment, but will fail in life. So, authenticity uh, will help our students survive and do well in the real world. I hope you're still with me. Okay. Now, next is uh, another shift is tests, traditional tests or alternative tests that are not authentic are usually simple. They test discrete skills. What do I mean? Uh, each skill has been unpacked and then you test them separately. So it's usually a one-step thing. So let me go to my math example. So it's like you teach your addition, and then in your test, it's really just 1 to 20. All addition of three-digit numbers. Yun lang. Okay? But we're now shifting to more complex because rarely in life do we apply a skill independently, okay, as to subject or discreetly one skill only. Even my example of the going to the grocery, paying and knowing how much you have, no? So you have to know first addition, you have to know subtraction, you have to know how to count actual money, 'di ba? How the money looks like. You have to put in skills. How do you complain in a good way without offending anybody? How to complain effectively so that you get the right results, etc., etc. So it's really an interconnection of different subjects and will entail many steps. So that's the third paradigm shift that will bring our assessments from inauthentic to authentic. And one way by which we can do this is to use performance tasks. Those who have been teaching for a long time are very bored with this. So please just bear with me. The entire talk will be a review of performance tasks. Okay? So, what's a performance task? You probably use them all the time, di ba? PT, PT, PT. Okay? So, it's an authentic assessment. It's a task that will require students to perform. We've never used it until DepEd required UBD. Okay? Nevertheless, forget DepEd. Let's look at this not because DepEd wants us to use it, but because we see the value in it. All right. So, performance tasks is a task that will let our students do something authentic, and will let them transfer or apply what they've learned in their classes. Okay? And as they do that, they will provide the evidence of their ability to transfer the knowledge, skills, and understanding where? To new, challenging, and problem situations. So it's not plug in because we will put them in something new. Okay? It will require higher order thinking skills. Okay? But if you're not careful, that's also not automatic. Everything has to be designed well. Okay? Um, so, a plug-in situation, let's say you're an English teacher, and then you teach the subject-verb agreement. If you test it by having the students simply choose, okay, which verb form to use to complete the sentence. Is it the one with the SES or the base form? That's a plug-in, inauthentic. But let's say you give your student a question that he has to answer spontaneously, and then within the answer you will look for the words that are being used. Okay? And then you're checking whether the subject agrees with the verb. Okay. That's an oral test. Is that already authentic? Probably not yet. Okay? If you put in that element of giving them a problem to solve, and that's the thing that they will answer, and that's where you will look for subject verb agreement, then that's where a bit of authenticity can already come in. Okay? Now, as I said earlier, um, the easiest way is to use performance tasks. Okay? Why? Because the performance tasks allows for application now. As they do their performance task, and mind you, because the performance task is complex, that's the third box. Because it's complex, it's usually not finished in a day or two. It will take more time. And as they do the different steps, as they do everything to complete the performance task, as they apply what they've learned in the different things that the performance task will require them to do, they are applying their knowledge and they're continuing to learn and appreciate what they're learning in your lesson. Okay? And you're going to throw in all those real life situations, messiness, problems, complications, which will turn the assessment in context from out of context. So, grasp is the easiest way, and this is familiar to most of you, but we will review it. Okay? So, let me go through each letter one by one. G stands for goal. Okay? So, what is the goal in the scenario? Okay. Remember, the assessment will let the students do something. Now, the question is, why will you let the students do that? 'Di ba? That's your goal. You have to have a goal. Hindi pwedeng, I want them to write a letter. Why? Wala lang, so that they can show me subject-verb agreement. That's not authentic because your goal is subject-verb agreement only. But the goal is the goal of your scenario. So for example, my goal is to have my students write a letter to the mayor uh, to request him to do something. That's the goal. Okay? So let me give you. So as I said, what do you want your students to do to show evidence of learning? So my example was to write a letter where they will have to make sure that the subjects are not fighting with the verbs. Dapat tama, subject-verb agreement. So, subject-verb agreement is one of my learning outcomes, right? I cannot forget that. Why? Because why am I giving the assessment? Hindi ba it's to check whether they understood, whether they reached the goal, the learning outcome, whether they're able to perform a skill, a master a skill. In this case, the skill to be mastered is subject-verb agreement. Okay? So I want them to be able to show that within a letter. So, these are more complex examples, no? Make a brochure to teach grade 2 students the importance of good nutrition as part of healthy living. Note, look make a brochure to teach grade 2 students. This means it is not the grade 2 students who will make. I'm letting someone older make a brochure so that someone younger, like the grade 2, will understand something. What is that something? It's the importance of the good nutrition. Okay? That's my learning outcome. Okay? If, so, guess, what subject was this probably used in? Can you type it in the comment section? I'll wait. For make a brochure to teach grade 2 the importance of good nutrition as part of healthy living. Which subject probably gave this? Can you type it please? TLE, pwede. What else? Thank you. Iram. Anyone else who'd like to guess? Science. Yes. No? Health. Correct. Okay, because this learning outcome is usually part of the standards of those subjects that you mentioned. Very good. Okay, now this one. Create a poster with a tagline that will remind the people of the value of voting wisely. So, what's the goal? For all the students to make a poster. What for? What's the goal of the poster? To remind people, to remind everyone who will see the poster of what? The importance of voting wisely. O this one, what subject? AP. Okay. Okay. What's EPP? Sorry, I'm not... Araling Panlipunan. Okay, social studies. Yes. Someone said art. Okay. Now, because it's a poster, remember what I said earlier? Authentic assessments are usually so complex that you will need more than one subject to work on it. So it is possible that this is a joint assessment by AP and art. That's correct. Okay? So art will give a score, will give a grade for the aesthetics of it, and then social studies AP will give a mark for the content for the content of the tagline. Next, conduct a survey regarding food preferences of grade school students and arrange the data using Excel. Okay? Conduct a survey and then arrange the data using Excel. What do you think? Okay? What subject probably gave this? Math. Probably, no? Yes. Because they do gathering of data. Now, if I... All right. TLE, Science, Math, English, Melody. Very good. Okay. TLE for the food part of it, no? Nawawala. Science for the nutrition part of it, Math for the data, and then English because maybe they will have to report their findings to whoever. Very good, Melody. Okay. So, that's the goal. It is important that the students know exactly what you want them to do and what for. Because if they don't know what for, di ba, there's no relevance. Bakit pa? And di ba, many times, our students don't want to study. Why? What do they feel? Para saan to? Para ke? Di ba? Para saan? I don't need this now. But this type of assessment stamps already. You need this because, this is what we will do. Okay, moving on. Letter R. Okay, because this is real life. We need our students to assume, okay? To assume a certain role, and that's the R. Okay? So, there are so many roles that you can have your students do. They can be an actor if the product or if you are requiring a performance, di ba? You might want them to assume the persona of an author if you want them to write a book or a blurb about the book. You might want them to be a caterer, no? If this is TLE and then they have to cook, di ba? So, it's not just cook one dish. It's you are a caterer and your goal is to serve, let's say, serve 10 people who will decide the caterer that they will get. Di dapat masarap yun. Immediately, okay, the role gives them a sense of importance, gives them relevance, and contributes to authenticity. Okay, they can be a candidate for especially for social studies or maybe even for English, di ba? Let's say in English your lesson is persuasive speech. The elections are coming up. So, you want them to assume the role of a candidate running for office. The goal is to come up with a persuasive speech to get the voters to vote for them. So, your role, candidate, di ba? There's a relevance, there's a clear thing that you want them to do, and so on, so forth. Now, if there is a role for the student, then they have to know who they are working with. Okay? So that's the audience. That's the letter A. Who is the target audience? Okay? You can see the second line always says this can be differentiated or this will be the same for all. So I'll talk about that later. But for audience, so do we want your who do you want your students to have as the audience in that particular grasp situation? Okay? Now, let me just talk a bit about this. It's good if you can classify who the audience is. Hindi pwedeng everybody in the world. I mean, pwede rin naman, no? Pwede rin. But rarely do we act or do something without an audience in mind, hindi ba? For example, even you, teachers, when you make your unit plan, you have an audience in mind. Di ba? Who is the audience? You have to know who your students are. What's their age? What are their interests? Di ba? What resources do they have with them? And so on so forth. If you are a candidate, yung example ko kanina about English, social studies, yung ganon, no? And you're a candidate running for elections. If you are giving the speech, okay, to the young voters, will it be the same speech if you are giving it to senior citizens? Will you give the same speech if you are addressing an elite crowd of businessmen? Or if you are doing your, what do you call that, speech on the road in a barangay, in a far-flung area? I bet the content of those speeches, even if all are persuasive speeches, even if all the roles is that of a candidate, will be different because your audiences are not the same. Okay? So, when you think of your grasps, when you think of your audience or the audience of the students who will make the assessment, clarify who will who are they? What do they look like? Now, this is a bonus. When we do this, do you know that to a certain extent, we will be teaching them how to empathize? Di ba? If you know your audience, or one way by which we can know our audience better is if we put ourselves in their shoes. Diba? For example, going back to the example of the candidate, if I am a candidate and I will address the rich businessman, iisipin ko, what do rich businessmen like to hear from a candidate? What are their needs? Okay? What type of language will they appreciate? If I speak Taglish, maybe they will look down on me. I have to speak straight English. If my examples are Jejemon, they won't vote for me, right? Now, on another note, if for example, my audience would be the young voters, no? Uh, and my example of and I I find that I'm very much into media, no? Media, mahilig ako manood ng sine. But let's say ang ginamit mo naman na example for the young, puro sila yung mga wala na, mga Vilma Santos. Sino pa ba? Ah, hindi ko alam kung sino yung mga iba eh. Basta the actors and actresses that I don't know. Will you hit it off with them? Siyempre hindi. So, you have to know your audience, and as you let your students know the audience, teach them to empathize. That's an important value, virtue, and at the same time, it's a skill. It is something that can be and should be learned. Okay? Let's go to the S. All right. S is the situation, and this is where you will put no all the messy stuff. Okay? So, you will include the reason no why you're doing it. So, in my example again of the candidate, no? So, this is where you will put you are going to the far-flung areas where there is little electricity, hardly any water. Doon mo nilalagay yung context. So, if you're the candidate, most probably you will promise them electricity and water, right? So, and now there's no electricity. So you will probably, if you will require a report, not just a speech, then your students will have to write, oh, I will conduct this during the day because at night there's no light anymore or there are no nighttime events. Okay? So this is where you will put your constraints. You only have 3 days. Or, for example lang, a typhoon suddenly came. So, how will you adjust your speech, etc., etc.? So, in short, the situation will include all the messiness that is found in the real world, and that will provide for authenticity. Okay? You still with me? Okay, that's our letter S. Let's now go to P. The original grasps is actually 3 Ps: product, performance, purpose. Okay? But in this case, I will just limit to product and performance. I already subsumed purpose to goal. Okay? So, when I say product, we're now talking about the tool. Okay? So, do you want them to create something, to submit something, or to do, to demonstrate something? So you choose which of the two. So what is the performance challenge. Okay, if it's a performance. Or what are they expected to create or to submit if it's a product. Now, in my example earlier, if I'm an English teacher, then my product is the persuasive speech. Okay? Now, I can expand it because it can be a product plus performance. Because after they write the speech, I would like them to record it and to submit a video recording of their speech. Okay? So that's your product performance. Again, there are so many ways by which the students can show it. No? Uh, so if it's written, it can be a biography, a book report, an editorial, an essay, a letter, a script, a poem. Okay? If it's verbal, so any of these. Now that we're online, so this will be done from a screen. So, can you imagine, pre-pandemic, di ba? Pre-pandemic, when we do oral performances, when we have our students do oral performances, we tell them, stand straight, di ba? The volume of your voice, your gestures, etc., etc. Right now, we added look at the camera, right? Make sure that which part can be seen. Okay, so not too near, not too far. So what does just right mean? If there are many other noise outside, how do you cancel the noise? So all those will now be included in your instruction. Don't take them for granted if you are requiring this one. Okay? Or it could be a visual product. So you can just look at this slide. I would just like to emphasize again, okay? All the things, okay, all the products and performances listed on this slide look as though they are authentic. But let me tell you, it's possible that it's not. Okay? It's possible that it's not. For example, cartoon, this one, cartoon, visual. Okay? And then I am a math teacher. And then my, what do you call this? My lesson is on fractions. Okay? My lesson is on fractions. And then I just tell them, write a cartoon, draw a cartoon or a comic strip that will illustrate, kunwari lang, 16 divided by 4. What's the added value of using that cartoon or comic strip? Wala. What's the real world situation? Wala. So, it is a cartoon, it's a comic strip, but is it authentic? It's not authentic. It's really just traditional, but you just let them draw something. And the drawing, in fact, is not necessary, has nothing to do with math, has no added value to the understanding of division. Okay? So the performance, the product does not make an assessment authentic. Moving on. Okay. Standards, the last S. It's important for us first, teachers, to know what excellent looks like. So in short, it's important for us to know first what is a correct answer, what's not a correct answer. So that's your standards, right? Second, it's also important to know how good something correct is. And because not all correct answers are created equal. There are better answers. There are answers nakakapit lang. Di ba? Parang pwede na rin. Hindi, medyo may konting-konting sablay, pero pwede na rin. Okay? That's not the same as a very good explanation. Okay? So there has to be standards. Um, and when we look for standards, again, those who were with me in the earlier one, this looks familiar. It's good to be guided by the following. So under criteria, you might want to look for impact. For authentic assessments, where we have a goal, okay, impact is usually important. Why? Because we had our students set out to do something. So the bottom line is, were they successful in doing what they needed to do? For example, going back to my candidate example, no, of the candidate trying to win voters' votes. If at the end of the speeches you have a mock election in your class, no? You have a mock election in your class as regards who they will vote for among the classmates who were speakers. The one who got the highest vote would have the strongest impact. And that's important. Why? Your learning outcome is persuasive eh. 'Di ba? You need to persuade. So bottom line is, who was able to persuade. Okay. Now, aside from impact, what do we look for? Content, no? So for content, so especially for the content heavy subjects, you would like to check for the correctness, the appropriateness, the relative sophistication of understanding, meaning how deeply was a concept understood. How will you know the deeply understood? Is it by the giving of examples, by the critical analysis, by the originality of thought that came out from it? So you have to unpack all those. But all those will refer to content. Okay? So those are important. And then quality. The example a while ago, let's say you want to get the role of a caterer, no? And then the product would be 3 to 5 dishes. And then you'd also like to check whether the caterer will be chosen. So it has to taste, the dishes have to taste good. That's quality, overall quality. Okay? And if what you had them do is so scaffolded, it needed scaffolding into steps because it's complex, then you might also want to check for process, whether it's individual or group work. Okay. So, what do those look fors have to do with the grading? Performance tasks. Performance tasks are best or better graded using rubrics. Okay? I don't know. Well, I'm sure that you know what rubrics are. So rubrics usually uh, look like a table, and then on the first vertical column, you will usually have your criteria. And these criteria are the ones that are aligned to your learning outcomes for content, no? Um, but if you're looking for these other three, they also have to be under your learning outcomes. Okay? Now, um, and then whatever among these in your first column is more important, you will give it more weight. Okay? So, and the highest score, if you're talking about percentages, they should total 100%. So, out of 100%, how much does content weigh? And content will still be broken down into evidences of learning. What are the knowledge and skills that you are looking for? They're still there. Okay? Now, after you already know those, this is when you will start nuancing. Okay? What does perfect look like? What does fail look like? Diba? A while ago, I said, first, you have to know if the answer is correct or wrong. So if it's wrong, it's the last column where you will give the least number of points or no points at all. But as I said, correct answers happen within a range. Some better, some poorer. So you have to describe how each look like. Now, why is this important? Because you give the rubrics not as a surprise to the students after they submit their work. No. Once you give them what to do, you give them the rubrics already. Why is that important? Because the students have to know what you are looking for. They have to know what good content is. They have to know how you measure impact. They have to know how teacher describes perfect or excellent quality, and so on, so forth. So the rubrics actually gives your students an exemplar of what they need to do. And in a way, because they know what excellent looks like, they can aim for that. Um, I think that in the past, no, maybe decades ago, teachers always felt that this yung parang may gulatan factor that the students are surprised by the grade they get. And then they only find out what the teacher is thinking, the standards of the quality of the teacher when they already see their grades. But I think that's unfair, di ba? When you build a house and you get a carpenter, no? When you get a carpenter to build your house, you tell the carpenter exactly, you have an agreement, no? With the carpenter na, o sige, dapat pulido. Pag pulido, dapat walang ganito, dapat skwala, dapat ganyan-ganyan. Ang dami, no? That's your rubrics. That's your quality. That's making things very transparent at the beginning so that whoever is working on whatever that is knows what he has to reach. Because if those standards are not met, then they will not get the perfect score. Okay? All right. Let's continue. So, can a student who does not understand the lesson do well in the assessment? So, let's say I'm a student. Hindi ko masyado naintindihan yung lesson and I cannot really show my mastery. And I get a good mark in the assessment. Is that a good assessment? Thumbs down. 'Di ba? No. Flip side, can someone who understands the lesson do poorly? So I understood the lesson very well, but I can add very well, I can subtract very well, but my teacher's instruction was to show it through a comic strip and I don't draw very well. So I got a low grade. Is that a good assessment? Thumbs down. Hindi ba? Because what is being graded is not my artistic skills, but my mathematical skills. So, it's good for all teachers to always remember these two questions when you design your assessments. Okay, let's now go to the examples of performance tasks. Okay, so grade 2, this one is for grade 2. The goal is to create an Excel spreadsheet survey by surveying the class as to which their favorite lunch food is. What will be the role of the students? They will be survey takers. Grade 2 lang to eh. Okay? And they need to obtain their data by surveying their classmates on the specific food type. So, they will most probably have to interview their classmates. Pwedeng verbal, no? Or they can come up with a questionnaire. They will let the classmates answer. Basta they will come up with the survey. Who are the audience? The classmates, okay? Who and the school cafeteria manager. Because the class would like to know that as a group, we're interested to know what our favorite is. At the same time, the manager, because we will share the data with the manager so that the favorite food can be served more often. Okay? So, may ganong ano yan. So, is it authentic? Yes. Bakit? Makikinabang sila eh. Situation. They will involve the gathering of data and then display that data in an Excel sheet. Di ba? Kahit naman the social weather stations, this is what they do. Okay? So they have to come up also with what's the minimum number of people that they will interview, how long, etc., etc. So product will be the Excel sheet and a letter to the cafeteria manager. Standards of success, the letter is written correctly, so probably for English class, contains correct data displayed in the cells, math class siguro to, no? And then displayed in a chart. So pwedeng pie graph, table, or whatever. So that's one example. Still math. So the goal is to minimize cost for shipping bulk quantities of M&Ms. So you know M&Ms, di ba? Yung parang nips na candy. So what's the role? Engineer in the packaging department of the company. So you might ask me, teka Jane, sabi mo dapat realistic. Hindi pa naman sila engineer. Remember what I said? It could be something that is done by someone else in real life, not necessarily by the students now. Okay? So this is still okay. So who's the audience? The non-engineer company executives. Bakit non-engineer? Kasi kung lahat sila engineer, hindi niya to kailangan gawin. Kanya-kanya na lang silang solve. Hindi ba? So, kaya nga non-engineer. Executives. So, meaning mga boss. Okay? If it's mga boss, what does it mean? The report may have to be done formally. Okay. So, situation. You need to convince penny pinching company officers. Penny pinching, what does that mean? Kuripot, no? That the container you will design will provide cost-effective use of the given materials. Now, this situation, how is this messy? One, kuripot yung executive. Hindi pwedeng kahit anong design. So your first limitation is already, it has to be cost-effective, yung pinakamura. Second, maximize shipping volume of bulk quantities. Okay, volume. So ibig sabihin, they also have to think about paano to ipapasok dun sa truck. Hindi ba? Hindi pwedeng konti lang yung laman tapos ang laki-laki ng box. Even that, why will that be a problem? Kasi mas konti lang matatransport mo. So hindi yan cost-effective. And be safe to transport. So, what does safe mean? M&M's to. 'Di ba? Sino ang kakain? Mga buyers. Kung kayo, bibili kayo ng chocolate, gusto nyo ba yung M&M's nyo basag-basag na o natunaw na? Kasi chocolate, 'di ba? Syempre, hindi. So, you also have to consider yung packaging. So, it has to be small enough, yet sturdy enough na hindi mag-melt, hindi madurog yung laman. So, is that messy? Yes. Is that still math? In a way, yes, because the computation is math, but the messiness is the real world. And if you are really an engineer of M&M, okay, if you're a mechanical engineer, you are thinking about these things. Okay? Hindi ito divorced from real life. These are really true. Okay. So, product and performance. You need to design a shipping container from given materials for the safe and effective, cost-effective shipping of the chocolates. Okay? So you need, so ano ang isa-submit? Drawing or prototype, depends, no? Pero ito yan eh. A written proposal, anong kasama sa written proposal? Diagram. So an illustration that will show mathematically. So there's your math solutions, equations, how the container design provides effective use of the given materials, etc. So your students already know what they have to submit. Will they know how they will be graded? Ito na yung susunod. The proposal will be graded according to whether the materials are cost effective, whether the volume has been maximized. So yung computation nandyan. Okay? So yung first two, nandyan yung mga computation. Be safe to transport. Now, this can still be math because let's say, you will say, lalagyan ko ng bubble wrap. Uso yun ngayon, di ba? Sa Shopee, Lazada. Everything we buy naka-bubble wrap. So that's safe, but it takes up a lot of space. And you have to compute that also. And then you have to put that in your proposal. So that is still math. So your models must make the mathematical case. Now, let's say yung bata, ang ganda ng drawing, may kulay-kulay pa, no? Pero walang sense yung math, mali-mali yung computation. Hindi yan papasa dapat, because your learning outcome is really math-based. Okay? It is, the bottom line is still the correctness of it, not the beauty of the design. Okay? All right. Let's go to another example. Mag-overtime yata ako, sorry ha. This is another example. So the goal is to design and build a prototype of a boat using your knowledge of buoyancy, density, mass, volume, and displacement. You can design a steamship, a sailboat, a canoe, a raft, etc. Kahit ano. So you will design a boat prototype. Mukhang parang pang anong subject ito? Remember, using your knowledge of buoyancy, density, mass, volume, and displacement. Anong subject kaya? Please type. Sige nga, wala pa akong nakikita. Science, physics, all right. Mukhang pang higher grades na to, di ba? Okay, what's the role? That of a boat designer. You're encouraged to reach out to your community partners to get feedback on your design. The fact that the students will reach out to these real communities already give it a sense of authenticity. Who will the audience be? There'll be a virtual gallery and it will be shared with the representatives of the museum. Okay? And in an interactive display during family STEM night. So, ang mga manunood niyan, makakakita ng product would be non-boat designers, but families who probably ride boats, hindi ba? Or, mo to, maritime museum representatives who will be boat experts. Okay? So you have a mixture of two. Now, what's the situation? They have to use the tools that you feel would best convey your design. So this one just gives them the alternatives by which they can present it. Okay? And then, because it will be interactive or in a museum, there has to be a short written audio video explanation embedded in the design. Okay, so the product performance, the product is a boat prototype. And what's the standard or criteria for success? The boat has to work. It has to float. Di ba? So, and the representatives of the museum should know it. So, kung kunwari, canoe yung dinesign, tapos saan mo gagamitin? Eh kung bumagyo, kaya niya ba? So, it contains all the messiness. And look, this one, will it sink? Will it float? Will it work? Of the four look fors, this is actually impact. Hindi ba? So, impact here, the bottom line will probably have a high weight value. Let me go a little faster. Okay. So, I will discuss this in a while. Now, you've probably heard of differentiated activities, hindi ba? Can you also differentiate performance tasks so that your students will find it more relevant? I think yes. Okay? So, let's go to our example about favorite food of students. And then let's expand it a little bit. So, the goal is to provide information regarding the favorite food of students. The role nga is that, let's say, you're the survey taker of a survey company. That's a student. Who's your audience? The school cafeteria personnel. Kasi the report will be submitted to them. Now, the situation is, we've expanded this to become more complex. We want data on the choices of the grade 3 students during recess, grade 3 during lunch, grade 4 during recess, grade 4 during lunch. Now, what's the product? Excel pa rin, na spreadsheet. Di ba? But the data will be arranged according to each box. Okay? And the data will be arranged according to each box, and those data will also have a graphic representation. No? And then after that, you want also a full consolidated report. And because this project was done in coordination with English, you also want a letter to the administration. So in math, how will this be graded? According to content, yan yung look fors niya. Content. Tapos, under that, accuracy of data, use of spreadsheet and graphs. Can you imagine the rubrics table? This is your first column. Accuracy of data, use of spreadsheet, neatness, then individual work, group work. Right after that, you have the weight value. Let's say you give content 50% for whatever reason, kunwari 50%. Now, that 50% is further subdivided into this accuracy and use of spreadsheet. So siguro 25-25. But after that column of 25, yun yung hihimayin mo into what? 3 to 4 columns. When will you get perfect 25? Pag lahat ng computation perfect? Pagka may isang mali, ilan yon? 20, 15, 10, 5? So, that's how you do your rubrics. And then you will put there, Here, perfect. Here, one mistake. Here, two mistakes, etc., etc. Now, pagdating ng neatness, again, let's say ito binigyan mo lang ng 10%. So, the weight value of 10. Yung 10, paano rin siya nakahimay into 4? Who gets a 10? Who gets a 7.5, a 5, a 2.5, etc. Yun yung nakahiwalay. So, when your students do the report, they know exactly, more or less, hindi ganun ka ganda yung gawa ko. So malamang in quality, I will only get this. Because my teacher will only give me 10 if it looks like this. Walang erasure siguro, etc., etc. Okay? Now, language will have its own rubrics. And the rubrics of language will not look anymore at the pie chart. Okay? Instead, it will look at the expository paragraph that might come in the form of a letter to this one, di ba? With the findings and recommendations. At the mechanics, capitalization, spelling, blah, blah, impact, whether o ba yung admin o hindi. Okay? Now, nasa ng differentiation dito? Maybe in the choice, mababaw pa lang to, no? Maybe in the choice of pie graph ba, bar graph ba, ang gagamitin namin, and then you leave it to the students. Okay? So, you're able to, certain extent, differentiate. But let's look at this one. Let's say, in social studies, your goal is to help a group of foreign visitors understand the key historic, geographic, and economic features of a region. Okay, now, I won't look at this anymore, but I have expanded this. Okay, I have expanded this to be differentiated. So the goal is the same for all, to help a group of foreign visitors understand, appreciate the economic, yung sinabi ko kanina, blah, blah, blah. But instead of just providing one role, I will let my students choose from 3 roles, or I will assign 3 roles. They can be an intern. They can pretend to be the intern at the tourism office, or they can be the cousin of foreign relatives who are about to come home to the Philippines, to that particular region, their province. Or they could be a museum curator of a local museum in that province. So dito pa lang, naka-differentiate na. Di ba? Now, obviously, um, it's always, who's the audience? The 9 foreign visitors. But, if you are the cousin, these 9 visitors are your cousins. Correct? If you are from the tourism office or a curator, you don't know the 9 foreign visitors. Okay? Now, what's the situation? If you were assigned role 1 and role 2, your situation is you have to give these visitors a 4-day tour. Okay? That's your plan, to let them go on a 4-day tour. If you're a museum curator, a 1-day tour of the museum. Alam namang 4 days sila nasa museum, di ba? Sobrang haba na yon. So, what's your product? If you're the intern, you will prepare a written tour of the itinerary with the explanation of the choice of the many, many things that can be seen in the province. Bakit ito yung 4 mong pinili na ipakita sa visitors? Okay? Given the goal. Given your learning outcome. Now, if you're the cousin, okay, then what you will be asked to do is a letter to your cousins before they come to the Philippines, before they arrive. You already tell them, oh cousin, We will go on a 4-day tour, and these are the places where we will go to. And then you will also tell them, uh, when we go here, this is what you'll see. Again, what to expect, di ba? And so on. So iba rin yung tono, but you're still doing the same thing. Now, if you're the museum curator, then your museum has the condensed items that will answer all the questions of the goal. Eh. So, you will give a spiel, 'di ba? As you bring your, what do you call this, visitors, to the different areas of the museum, what is your speech in each area? So in short, all the products will do the same thing, will have the same purpose, but will come in different forms. That's how we differentiated. And how will they be graded? Pwedeng iba-iba, no? For the content, it's almost the same, okay? But for the quality, the first and the third one will have to look more formal. The second one should be informal but may include some other details that are important. Example, Okasin, the weather is hot. So you wear loose, light clothing made of cotton. That's better. Di ba? That's what you tell your relatives when they come. But if you are a museum curator, you don't say that. Pagdating sa iyo, kung ano suot niya, yun na yun. Hindi ba? So, uh, all those will entail that they know who their audience is. So, an exercise of empathy might also be needed in order for them to do a good job in these performance tasks. Okay, so just to summarize, differentiation 1 will go like this, di ba? Differentiation 2 will go this way horizontally from a student's perspective. And differentiation 3 will go this way from, again, the student's perspective. Okay? So, I hope that with this slide, you were able to see that differentiation is possible. There's a certain degree of open-endedness because there is no one correct answer. But within that open-ended answer, there will be look-fors to allow you to determine if it's a correct answer or not. Okay? I always tell our teachers in school, if your correct answer is only based on common sense, that's not a good item. Because everybody will have a correct answer. Hindi ba? Hindi pwedeng Miss Universe answers. Okay. Now, um, ito sakit ng maraming teachers and sakit ng maraming teachers nung katatapos ng mag-UBD seminar. No? Most of the yung PTs or what you call PETA, I saw that on the screen a while ago, PETAs were made this way. And with similar to the format of the examples I gave earlier. Those are not wrong. Okay? Those are not wrong, but this is a format for the teacher's use, not for the student's use. Why? Because a student who sees this, regardless of how authentic this is, clearly feels na ay project to sa science o social studies. Hindi ba? Di ba? Parang seatwork na seatwork ang dating. So, this template is important for teacher use so that you don't miss out on each of these important components. All right? That's important. Again, let me repeat that. This template, the acronym of GRASPs, is for teacher use. Okay? It's for teacher use to help you come up with your PETA. Okay? But when a student sees the PETA, ano na itsura? Ganito pa ba? Hindi na. Dapat ganito. Example, let me read it aloud. Inom lang ako. Okay, I got this from the internet. There, there has been an outbreak of cholera in your village. As the village health worker, your job is to stop the spread of this potentially fatal illness. It's not possible to visit every family, so the school has agreed to send home a small poster to every family. You will need to create a small poster that informs people how to prevent getting cholera and what to do if they contract the illness. The challenge is that 80% of the villagers cannot read. Your poster should be easy to understand and have clear images that speak for themselves. Oh, mukha bang homework? Hindi, di ba? I-compare mo ito, you turn this, no, into something that looks like this. The goal is to stop cholera. Your role is that you are the village, ganon-ganon. You're the village health worker. Okay? Now, what's the situation? You cannot visit the family. So, you have to send home a small poster. What's the product? A small informative poster to prevent getting cholera and what they will do when they get cholera. But the challenge in the situation is that 80% cannot read. So what's the standard? The poster should be easy to understand and the illustrations speak for themselves. All the components are there. But where did this come from? It probably came from a table that used the grasps. But when the students get it, dapat ganito na. Para feel na feel. Okay? So the authenticity is also in our marketing. Yes, the grasps is easier to understand. Okay? But Mark, just a question. Have you also tried the paragraph form? Okay? If you have not tried the paragraph form, try it. But you have to teach students how to read this. You have to teach them who they are, what their goal is, who will the poster be for, okay? What the situation is without using teacher language. Okay? So, for me lang if I put myself in the shoes of a student, I'd be more engaged. I'd be more excited to do this. Even if it's actually the same thing as the table. Ang liit lang, but I think in terms of engagement, it's a tipping point. I'll give you another example. Recently, there have been several deaths caused by malaria in the area. As the community nurse, your task is to stop the spread of the deadly disease. To make everyone in the village know how to prevent malaria, you have been asked to create a brochure using ways to prevent being bitten by mosquitoes. You will need to use lots of pictures in your brochures, as many people still cannot read. A good brochure has accurate information. Standards na to, di ba? Pictures that help the reader understand and clearly outlines what the people need to do to spread. Again, can be in a table form, but I think more impactful in a paragraph form if you teach And your students already know how to unpack this. Okay? And when you unpack, you don't need the table. 'Di ba? Kasi sa totoong buhay, hindi naman yung table ang gagamitin nila eh. Hindi ba? Hindi yun yung table. Ang anong gagamitin nila? You have to probably model a think aloud kind of thing. Naku, 3:15, sorry. Okay, next. Gobone has been identified as a highly fertile and good area for growing round cabbages. Cabbages can be sold at the local market and there is long-term financial gain, for farmers in the area for small-scale farming of cabbages. Your job as the agriculturist is to develop brochure in simple English and the local vernacular. The brochures will have pictures and show step-by-step process of how to grow round cabbages. A good brochure will be easy to understand, have all the correct steps. Again, so what's the goal? To teach people how to grow round cabbages, di ba? Who are they? They will teach the farmers. Okay? You're an agriculturist who will develop a brochure. Who's your audience? The farmers, okay, who speak simple English and a lot of the local dialect. Okay? What's the product? A brochure. How will it be graded? It should have pictures, should have a step-by-step process. Okay? Now, those that are easy to understand and with all the correct steps will get a higher score. Okay? I will skip the last two examples due to lack of time. Quick check. Okay? Get ready to type in your answers in the comments section. Okay. First question. True or false? Traditional pencil and paper assessment should be avoided in assessing learning outcomes that we consider valuable. True or false? Okay. The answer here is false. Okay? Traditional paper and pen test still have their place, important place in education. Okay? It depends on your goal. It depends on your learning outcome. It depends on what you want to measure. Okay? Number two, major assessments should always be authentic. True or false? Hindi ko alam kung para saan tong answer na to. But the answer is false. Okay? Some lessons are so basic, are so simple that you cannot put in authenticity. Or sometimes you just need to know whether they understood it, okay, very well, and it's the depth of their explanation that matters. Okay? So, it's not always the best. It is better in some cases, but not in all cases. Number three, authentic assessments are always alternative. We've answered this kanina, di ba? The answer is false. Why? Because both traditional and alternative assessments could be authentic. So this is the flip side. Alternative assessments are always authentic? Not really. Depends on the context that you inserted within the assessment. Alternative authentic assessments are the best types of assessments. False. Why? Always go back. What's your learning outcome? What's the purpose of your assessment? What do you want to check? If it's application in the real world, then maybe number 5 can be true. But what if that's not your objective? Then number 5 will not be true. Authentic assessments require the application of knowledge and skills. This number is true. True. Okay? If your PETA only requires common sense and someone who has not understood the lesson very well is able to do well in your PETA, that is not a good assessment. That's not a good authentic assessment. Authentic assessments are authentic precisely because the knowledge and skills that they learned from the lesson, okay, need to be applied in real life. Okay. Now, why do we want to use authentic assessments? So that students will know why they are studying the lesson. Para saan? Di ba? Di ba? The goal answers that. And because of that, they are more engaged. And because it will require an application, the teacher is able to check, tama ba siya mag-apply kung totoong buhay na problem na? Okay? Now, and because they're doing this independently, you're promoting a mindset that I can do things myself, and you are giving them the skills to do things themselves. So self-efficacy, I can do this. Self-agency, I can really do, I do it. No, I'm able to do it. And then, hopefully, they get this feeling kasi real world yung mga problem eh. So we start exposing them to sustainable development goals. We expose our students to real world problems, concerns. Hopefully we develop a sense of responsibility and accountability so that if they don't do anything when they're adults, parang mag-guilty naman sila, no? Parang they have a feeling na I have to do something. Maliit pa ako, bata pa lang ako. Gumagawa na kami ng solusyon sa mga problemang ganito. Di ba? So I'd like to end by going back to my title slide. Authentic assessments are important. They make students use what they know. So pedagogically, it's important to cement learning through application, but also so that our students could be of service. Magagamit para saan? To be of service to themselves, to others, the country, and the world. Thank you very much. I apologize for the very lengthy presentation. Thank you. Would there be any
Okay.
questions?
Ayan. Thank you, Miss Jane. Okay. Thank you, Miss Jane. And also, good afternoon to everyone, to our participants today. I am Cristil Pascobillo, and I am an executive assistant under the Tag Pros Education. Okay. Again, ma'am, thank you for that wonderful and insightful and, of course, a very comprehensive discussion. We are so grateful for the knowledge and expertise that you have shared with us today. So, let us give her a round of applause, everyone. Thank you po,
Thank
Miss
you.
Jane.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so I'm sure our participants have questions for our speaker today. So again po, to our participants, please feel free to ask questions. Let me now read some of the questions that have been sent in our comment box. So first po is from Miss Manolita Ramas Oligo. She said, when do we use process performance-based assessment and product performance assessment?
Thank you. Again, it depends on your learning outcome. If the learning outcome is better seen, remember, why do we do assessments? Because we're looking for evidences that our students got it, right? If the evidence is better presented as a product, then you require the product. If the evidence is better uh, presented in the form of a performance, then you let them do something. Or if it can be presented in both, then the teacher will choose. For example, persuasive type. Okay? Persuasive type of speeches. Now, how do you want it? In written form that it can end with a speech, no? But if your learning outcome is also oral delivery, then the performance, it may be better graded as a performance in the delivery of the speech. So it really depends on your learning outcome. Let's say your learning outcome is only the persuasive part and there's no oral component, then you can stop there and no need to go to the oral. Again, it really depends on the learning outcome. And when both are equal, then depends on the preference of the teacher. When you do your preference, you may think of engagement. What will students want to do more? Di ba? What will engage them better? Then that can help you make a decision.
Yes po, ma'am. So basically, it is a situational basis depending on the learning outcomes. Right. Okay. I hope Miss Manolita, Miss Jane was able to answer your question. In addition to that po, she also asked, is it possible to explain why the student outputs as they are through an assessment of the process, which they did in order to arrive at the final product? So I think
Sorry,
Miss Manolita, yeah,
yeah, I
I
did not.
think Miss I think Miss Manolita is asking if it is possible to explain the student outputs through the assessment itself as to how they did arrive to that product. Are we able to use the assessment to explain their outputs?
Wait. If the question is, are students required to explain their product? Again, it depends on your goal, on the context, ha? For
Mm-hmm.
example, in the examples I gave earlier of the posters that have to be clear enough to be understood, that has those posters are standalone. If they need the artist or the creator to explain it, that will get a low score because the standard says it has to be clear enough to be understood. So I don't know if that answers the question. However, if this is about the shift, the paradigm shift a while ago, where the assessment can also still be a learning process, then as you can see from the examples, let's say when they do the poster of how to plant round cabbages, tapos TLE ito, no? As they come up with the steps and research on what these are, they are still learning about it, right? It has not stopped. It did not just ask them, enumerate the steps. Hindi eh. As they do the poster, they're learning more the subject even more deeply. Okay, I don't know if I hit it right, but that's how I understood it.
Okay po. Miss Manalita, if you have further clarifications, maybe you may approach us on our Facebook page and message us directly so Miss Jane can answer it later po. So, another question, Miss Jane. Ano pong gagawin nyo kung nakita nyo naman na nag-effort yung student pero they fell short when it comes to the rubrics you set? Do you give plus points for the effort po?
Okay, I will uh, say no that I am against it. Hindi ba? Kasi you can credit effort in other ways. All right? You can credit effort in other ways, but ask yourself, when you give a certain product or performance a grade, what is the statement of that grade? That grade should say how much the student understood a lesson, understood a concept, or mastered a skill. It does not say how much effort was given. 'Di ba? Kasi the effort is not equivalent to the understanding. Ano ngayon kung naghirap siya, pero hindi pa rin siya marunong mag-add ng three-digit numbers eh. Paano siya pupunta sa palengke ngayon? Anong naitulong natin? yung pagtatry niya, magiging better ba siya sa so ang feeling ko lang, if you give, in our school, pre-pandemic, we used to give a conduct and effort mark aside from the performance grade. So hard work goes to effort mark. It's not the same as the performance. So that if you look at performance, kitang-kita mo sino yung gets, sino yung hindi pa gets. Yun lang.
Okay, thank you for that, Miss Jane. And our last question is from Sir Mark Nel Venus. Due to the new normal, will GRASP template be modified too, especially for audience and learners roles?
Okay, thank you for the question. The template, there will be no change. Okay? When I talk about the template, I'm talking about the acronym. Okay? But what are the possible roles and audiences? That's infinite. That's really up to you. No? So it will change. And it's not just the pandemic that will bring about change. Sometimes it's modernization. 'Di ba? Kunwari, ngayon, meron tayong mga social media, kunwari, troll, mga ganon. Or ikaw yung taga-check kung accurate ba ang laman ng Facebook. 10 years ago or 15 years ago, walang ganong job. But right now, that's possible. So that can now be a role, right? So yes, it's not the template that will be modified, but your audience, your learners can certainly be expanded. Or yung mga audience rin dati or roles dati na hindi na applicable ngayon, wag nyo na rin gamitin. Gas-gas na or hindi na applicable. Hindi ba? So kunwari, you are a telephone operator to connect services. Wala nang ganun ngayon eh. Hindi na alam ng mga bata kung ano ang telephone operator. So wag kayong magbibigay rin ng ganon. So your choice of how you will design your graphs should be contextualized given the available resources of your students and their actual context.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am. I think that is actually true because change is inevitable part of our life. So, part po talaga siya, no? Okay, so that ends our open forum. We apologize if we're not able to answer all the questions that have been sent in our chat box, but we are running out of time. So if you have any further questions, you may just send it or forward them to us at Tag Pros Education Facebook page. And rest assured that Miss Jane and us, the Tag Pros, will try our best efforts to give you the answers you seek. Okay po? Again, thank you so much po, Miss Jane. Alright? So, thank you, ma'am. Hi, now let's proceed to the next part of our webinar. We want to know your thoughts about today's webinar. So, we will be giving you the link to our evaluation form. The link to the evaluation form is now flashed in our screen as well as in our comment section. You may check it right now. Okay, for our evaluation form. So, for our evaluation form po, just go to our browser and just go to your browser and type www.tagpros.org. Okay, so if you can see the top part of the website, just hover your cursor on the evaluation on the form tab and click it. Answering this evaluation form is necessary for claiming e-certificates and also for getting an entry to the GCash raffle draw. So please po, don't forget to answer the evaluation form. Also, a reminder, you have 1 week to answer the evaluation form to get an e-certificate. Alright, so now before we officially end today's webinar, our partner, Mr. Charles Wiles, the CEO of ZQ EdTech IT Solutions, is here to join us for the final time. Okay, let us just share Mr. Charles' message.
My name is Charles Wiles and I'm the founder and CEO of Quizalize. And I'd like to thank you all today for taking the time to learn how to use Quizalize to deliver effective online assessments. And I'd also like to thank TagPros for inviting us along to do these webinars. Now, it's never been more important than today to be able to understand each of your students' individual learning gaps and give them exactly the right help so that they can perform and accelerate their learning. And that's exactly what we designed Quizalize to do. We designed Quizalize to give you, the teacher, the superpowers to understand your students better than before and to personalize your teaching to each and every one. I hope you'll enjoy these webinars. Rose is an amazing, incredible trainer. I'm sure you're in good hands. And thank you also to Jim Toscano, who is just one of the most amazing teachers we've come across. Really great and exciting to see all the amazing learning that's going on in the Philippines right now. Thanks again and enjoy the webinars.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Charles Wiles, for that valuable insights. Also po, the Director of the Department of Education Internal Cooperation Office, Dr. Margarita Consolacion Ballesteros, is here as well to impart message for everyone.
Good day, good afternoon, good evening to all our participants, both here and beyond the archipelago. Thank you, Jim, and to your team, the Tag Pro Philippines, for organizing this webinar for our teachers. Our teachers, who remain to be our unsung heroes, and yet we, of course, appreciate, we, of course, celebrate the teaching profession with our superheroes, the divas, the supermen and superwomen, the Iron Man and Iron Women of the 21st century, our dear teachers. This is Director Marge Ballesteros wishing you all the best in your another learning undertaking for this morning and even in the days to come. We learn and we keep learning because we cannot afford to be left behind. Dear teachers, the challenges are humongous. We face a lot of challenges. Number one, the challenge of adjusting the learning environment now that we do virtual meetings, virtual classes, or we call it our online learning, the distance learning, or even blended learning. All of these things are happening. We are pushed to because of the changing times. And we cannot even predict if COVID will still stay up to when. But we can predict what we can do as teachers because we've got the power, and that's the power to think and the power to act. With distance learning, we have learned a lot for the past year. We know that teachers are challenged, but our teachers too responded to the humongous and endless challenges because the teachers love their learners as well as they do it not only for the sake of love, but for the sake of but of course from their commitment and their passion as teachers. Jim, keep going. So with your team in helping our teachers, because I know the Savior community are really very supportive, not only of our brothers and sisters who are in the private sector, but more so of our brothers and sisters, our teachers from the public schools or in the public schools. Thank you for helping us train our teachers, and thank you for contributing to the upskilling and retooling of our 21st century teachers for the sake of our learners. So good luck for another learning experience, and I hope that those of you who are participating to this webinar for today will really learn and get to share it with your peers, with your co-teachers, and even to the kids who you teach every day. So to everyone, the International Cooperation Office of the Department of Education would like to wish you all the best for another learning this morning. God bless and have a good day.
All right, thank you so much, Director Ballesteros. And that ends today's webinar workshop and this month's series. I hope to see you all again at our next webinar workshop series for the month of August, where we will be talking about well-being for teachers and students. For the first August webinar workshop on August 7th, we will be talking about self-care for teachers with Miss Christine De Leon Alcala, a certified life coach. For August 14, we will be joined by Dr. Ferdinand Blanca Flor Pitagan, and he will be discussing agency, grit, and resilience of students through the pandemic. Um, for August 21, we will be talking about digital citizenship in action with Mrs. Jessica Demechilio. And finally, for August 28th, we will be featuring a surprise panel discussion on how we can ensure no one gets behind in education. Okay, as flash on our screen right now, that's for our August 7 webinar. Okay, guys, so as always, keep updated with Tag Pros Education by following our official social media pages and invite your family and friends as well. Finally, teach your passion and be a Tag Pros Education teacher partner. In Tag Pros Education, you can create your ideal classroom and teach students from all around the world at your own convenience. Also, we will be announcing more details about Tag Pros Education Teacher Partnership Program in the near future, so please stay tuned. Again, I'm Christine, and thank you for joining us today. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone, and keep safe.
We transition to the new normal. We have left others behind. We need to reimagine and redesign our educational system. With the collective effort of schools, sponsors, and TagPro's learning management system, and core of passionate teachers, we can deliver free education and champion the cause of our students. Together, we would be able to teach, inspire, and serve, because TagPros believes that education is a right all children deserve.